Good evening and welcome back to another episode of A Contagious Smile. I really think that this one's going to be an unstoppable because I have my friend Magic Barclay with us. And the unstoppable is the unfiltered one, so we can really put our guard down and talk about the real deal here. Magic has such an amazing story herself, yet alone her recovery and her journey of healing and growth. She is someone I look up to. She's an inspiration to so many people. And I thank you so much for making the time to get here with me today.
My absolute pleasure. And I have to say, you're an inspiration to me too. So thank you.
Oh, she's such a doll. So, give us a little bit about your backstory, and then we'll talk about why we're doing this today.
Sure. So my backstory came from a very traumatic childhood. My parents hated each other. And, for various reasons, neither of them were blameless in the situation. But my older brother and I became the emotional ping pong balls. So you can imagine a ping pong ball is used, it's utilized, it's
Right.
not allowed to have any emotions or direction or anything of itself. It just gets hit by the bat and then it goes to the other side. And so this is what happened to us. And, we live here in Australia. So back in the day, in the 70s, when this all started, the Commonwealth Police were called in to pick us up from school and take us to access visits. And I remember, I was 5 and I was in prep, which I'm not sure what that is over in the US.
Kindergarten?
Kindergarten, yeah. So I was actually picked up by my armpits by 2 Commonwealth police and dragged into a car to be taken to access visits. So, this was all going on. My brother was undiagnosed special needs. And so I was always his protector. I was the one that would punch people in the kneecaps because that's all I could reach just to protect my big brother.
Oh,
And so, here we were backwards and forwards. The mother would say, don't do that. Your father used to do that. And then we'd go to the father and he'd say, don't do that. Your mother eats porridge that way. That's disgusting. Don't be a disgusting person. And, one would buy us clothes and the other one would strip us off outside before we came into the house because the clothes were not from that house. So this kind of stuff was going on and it went on for many, many years. And into my early teens, because I had no sense of self, I didn't get to grow up to be a kid and explore things and fall out of trees and make mud pies and
right.
play with Barbie and all that. I didn't get to do that to the extent most kids did because, oh, quick, pack up the toys. It's time to go. You've got an access visit. We're going to drop you at the police station so your father can pick you up, all this kind of stuff. So going into my early teens, the only thing I could control was what I ate. So I controlled that to the point where I was anorexic and I was losing weight rapidly and I had some control in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Then I added into that alcoholism. So by the time I was 16, 17, I was full-blown alcoholic and anorexic. So, here I was trying to control what I could in my life. And of course, one thing I couldn't control then was my health because I didn't know what was going on. I would be constantly weak and blacking out in the middle of the street late at night. I remember at one point in time, I blacked out in the middle of a very major road, probably 10 minutes out of the CBD of Melbourne in Australia. And thank God for the Hells Angels. That's all I can say because 2 of them rode up, found me in the street, picked me up and took me back to where I came from, which was a local pub. And I was actually dating the publican and they went, we believe this belongs here. We've
And you were
seen her
how
here.
old? I'm sorry.
I was about 17 at that point. Yeah. So had I not been picked up by these bikies, scraped off the road, literally a tram would have come and probably sliced me up, or something else would have happened to me. So, thank God these 2 guys took me back to where I was. And when I came to the next morning, everyone was joking about it. You passed out in the street and thought, that's not funny.
No, it's
And
not.
I thanked the 2 guys. I met them the next day and thanked them for basically saving my life.
Sure.
But that wasn't the wake-up call that I needed. That was just a nudge.
Right.
And, I ended up moving states to get away from my family and, progress my career at the time and meeting some wonderful people. But my diet was still coffee and French champagne. and I would eat a meal once a week. I would cook like a
Once a
roast lamb,
week?
and I would just eat off that for a few days and then chuck the rest out. Yeah, that was my diet. So here I was, skinny, and hitting all my career goals, but extremely unhealthy within, and certainly unhealthy within my mind. So I came back to Melbourne a few years later, and, I really had to address what I was doing. I found a new career, and that required me to be physically fit. So I started eating properly, but I kind of went to the other way. So I became bulimic. So I would eat, but then I would make myself throw up because then I'd panic about my weight.
Right.
And my new career was in a sport, which was very physically demanding. And, here I was, I couldn't even hold on to the steering wheel properly. I was racing a car, so I couldn't have the strength to hold on to the steering wheel. And I met my ex-husband there, and he put me on a pedestal, and everything I did was fabulous, and he was following me around like a puppy, and I thought, finally someone loves me. So of course I got married within about 6 months of knowing him, got pregnant pretty much straight away, and even on our honeymoon, guess where we went? We went on a winery tour to a winery town, and guess who got absolutely shit-faced paralytic? Sorry, excuse my language, but
This is
I was
so
drunk
good.
for 5 days. Get home from the honeymoon, I'm still vomiting everywhere. And so I go to a doctor, and I said, look, I think I'm still drunk, but it shouldn't take this long to come out of my system. He goes, no, you're not drunk, you're pregnant, you got morning sickness. I'm like, right. Wake up call for me. Still no relationship with myself, mind you, but I'm now looking after someone else inside me. So I stop drinking, I start eating properly, I stop throwing up. I'm eating 3 meals a day, and I'm eating pretty healthily. I mean, with my first son, my craving right through my pregnancy was chicken, cheese, and avocado toasted sandwiches, but I wouldn't have one, I'd have like 5. So I still had no relationship with food.
Right.
I was eating a Caesar salad, packet mix from the supermarket, but I wasn't just eating one serve, I'd eat the whole big bowl. So I still could not establish a relationship between food and me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I thought I was looking after my son, that I was growing inside me. I'd stopped drinking cold turkey. I'd started eating, and, weight crept on. So when I delivered my son, I was obese, and I had gestational diabetes with him, and I was on insulin. And, when he popped out, it was like, your diabetes gone. You don't need insulin anymore. Everything's good. Everything was not good because I didn't know how to eat.
Right.
And okay, I'd stopped drinking, but I still was not eating well. Within a space of about 6 months, I got pregnant again. That was my daughter. I lost her at about 28 weeks.
So sorry.
And it was pretty tough at the time. But you know what? I thank God every day that she didn't make it now, because how would I have brought a daughter into this world not knowing who I was? How would I have taught her? Anyway, about a year later, I get pregnant again, my second son, and gestational diabetes was back. And this time the insulin was 10 times what it was for his big brother. And when he was born, I was super morbidly obese. And so I had the doctors telling me, we're going to do natural birth here, natural labor, but you are a high risk because of your weight, because of your diabetes, and because of your blood pressure, and because of everything. So my son was born and put straight into the special care nursery, put on a sugar drip. He was hypoglycemic at birth because of the things that I had done to my body. It wasn't until about 5 years later, when my eldest son went to school for the first time, and now he's in prep, in kindergarten, and all the mums are saying goodbye to their kids on the first day of school, and they're giving, the kids are giving the mums hugs.
Right.
And my boy just starts bawling, tears streaming down his face, and he goes, Mummy, Why can't I hug you? All the other kids can reach around their mummies.
Oh,
And I went, oh, shit.
right.
Now I've done it. Now I've really done it. So that was my moment to start really putting me first. And it set me on a journey of, this was 20 years ago now. So it set me on a journey of, who am I? Who is Magic? Who is this person? I am not a mum. I am not a wife. I am not a daughter. I am me. Those other things are great. And yes, I am those, but they're not the core of who I am.
Right.
And it took me a long time to work out who I was. Because, if you go back to when I was his age at that point and in prep, I didn't know who I was then. Because I was that ping pong ball, that emotional ping pong ball. Right. With no thoughts, no feelings, no agenda, no direction. And so, here I am, and my son's in that age group, and I'm like, who am I? You walk into a room and someone says, oh, tell me about yourself. So I'm a mum, and at that point, a wife, and I'm a daughter, and I'm a sister. No, but who are you? I don't know. I really couldn't tell people that. And, it's taken the past 20 years for me to get to that. Now I have 2 wonderful grown sons. My youngest, I've always been perfectly honest with him about anything I'm going through. So my health battles, I not long ago had to say to him, I'm diabetic and, my weight's gone up and down for so long, my body doesn't know what to do, but I'm going to beat this. And he watched me take my blood pressure, and it was in stroke territory. And he goes, that's not good, is it, Mum? And I went, no, here's what could happen if I can't rein this in, but I will. And so I was really honest with him, and he's my greatest supporter. He says, how are your sugars today? And I'll show him. You go, oh, spot on. You're not diabetic anymore. And I went, no. How's your blood sugar? Yeah, okay. How's your blood pressure? It's still not good. He's like, well, we need to work on that. You need to learn to calm down, Mum. Whereas my eldest, he's a good kid, yeah. Oh. I'm blessed for him. But my eldest, unfortunately, has watched my ups and downs through his life. And he has followed suit. So when he was younger, he developed anorexia. And I was just mentioning this off air. If I knew then what I know now and what I specialize in now, which is limbic work, I would not have done what I did to him when he was on the path of anorexia. I exposure therapied him. Now, before anyone listening cringes and wants to go, how dare you, that's so wrong. At the time, I didn't know any better. So I showed him pictures of anorexic people and I said, what do you think this looks like? Forget about the aesthetics, the looks, right, the attractiveness of these people. Do you think they look healthy? Do you think they look happy? And that was the start of snapping him out of it. Now he has a really good relationship with food, but he's kind of feeling a bit lost in other ways. And, that's now my role to support him. And what I tell him is it took me a long time to learn who I was.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I like some of the things that I found, but it is what it is. And I'm okay with that because that makes me me. So I am supporting him on his journey now. We do a lot of the limbic or PNEI work that I do. We do it together. And he's kind of slowly getting that he needs to establish who he is. So, it's really in medicine and in natural medicine, we look at self and non-self. Mm-hmm. And that's really what this all comes down to. My journey, my son's journey, pretty much anyone's, whether it be emotionally or physically, you have self and you have non-self. Mm-hmm. So even down to your cells, you have self cells, which are of you, and you have non-self, which are pathogens, mm-hmm, which are still of you because about 70 or 80% of your cells are actually not human cells. They're pathogenic and they make us who we are. Right. So, but emotionally, we have to look at what is self And then what is non-self? So when we're talking to kids with eating disorders, when we're talking to adults who have lost their way parenting, whatever it is, even on a health journey, we say to our clients, what is self? What makes you you? And then what is non-self, which could be the agendas of the people around you. It could be the agendas, this is going to cause some controversy, but of government. They all have agendas. Could be the agenda of even your workplace.
Right.
It could be your friends. Like, I know when I was super skinny, I had bigger girls, healthier girls that wanted to be friends with me because I made them look better.
Right.
And then when I got really, really fat and obese, morbidly obese, I had skinnier friends that wanted to hang out with me because it made them look better.
Right.
So, that's all non-self. But we really have to explore this journey of self-selves, self-emotions, self-identity. Who are you? And I think this is what's really lacking.
I agree 1,000,000%. And, we were talking off air about, so a project I'm taking on of I don't even want to call it a program that is here in the US to help individuals with eating disorders. And it's all about what's in your wallet. That's like my thing I'm telling them. It's because, if your particular insurance doesn't give us what we want, we're not going to take your child. Well, and I said to them, God forbid you go through a divorce and your spouse cancels your health insurance and your child ends up with an eating disorder. And this is the place you need to go. And they have no insurance at that moment. Is your facility going to shut the door in their face and not help them? And they were like, we won't help them because of a technicality. I mean, it's not coming out of your paycheck. Like us at A Contagious Smile, my husband and I, we breed golden retrievers and we donate them to families of special needs kids. And we don't have funding. We don't have people that are contributing. I mean, yeah, we do fundraisers, but we're paying it out of our own pocket and it's incredibly expensive. But, I just had, and I hate how I meet these amazing families because it's really heart-wrenching, but we just had a family that had literally nothing. And I'm not going to say, hey, because you don't have XYZ, I'm not going to help you with your forever best friend. We donated them a dog, and it's about helping others, which in today's world, nobody does this anymore. It's all about selfish intuition and doing only what's best for you. To hell with everybody else. I mean, to string someone along for weeks and let them think that they're about to get the help that they need and then just shut the door in their face, that's like inhumane. That's not acceptable to me at all. And they need to be held accountable for their actions. What do you do when you have somebody who has an eating disorder that can literally make themselves not only regurgitate, but bring up straight stomach bile every single time? It's ruining their teeth. It's ruining the back of their throat. They've even had surgery, and I don't know if you know what this is. It's called a fundoplication Nissen, where they wrap the esophagus to the stomach, and they are not supposed to be able to retch through it and belch or vomit ever again. They do it on grown people. They do it on younger people. And this one particular individual that I'm helping with has had 2 of them and retched through both. And they can't do a third one. This person is literally retching stomach acid at the very site of anybody medical due to the PTSD. How do we help this beautiful young teen when everybody else who's supposed to have the tools in their toolbox locks that toolbox up and refuses to help? How do we help them?
I think it's a matter of getting to root cause. And this is where these facilities are going wrong. They're treating the symptomology, which would be, the current PTSD, but they're treating the presentation of that. They're not saying, well, how did this young person end up in this situation? I know of the person that you're talking about and a very supportive family. And so it's not something from the family group that's causing this. So what is it? And it's medical PTSD.
Yes.
So where was the first time that happened?
Hospital.
Why wasn't it addressed then by a counselor or someone at the hospital. Why? Because they're not trained to look for root cause.
Right.
This fear started somewhere, right? And whether it was a real fear, like someone was harming this young person, or whether it was a perceived fear, this is what we need to address. And that is what is in the young person's mind. And it's not a matter of, here in Australia, they have a whole lot of professionals, let's just say in inverted commas, that say, well, what are you worried about? Nothing's happened.
Right.
But that alone is feeding that PTSD, because this young person knows something has happened. They might not be able to put their finger on it.
But this person
Something
can
has
put their
happened.
finger on it. They can.
They
Clearly stated, every time I've gone into the hospital, I come out with something new. So what's going to happen to me this time? Am I going to get this? Am I going to get that? What surgery are they going to do? What procedure are they going to do on me now? And they actually say I'm like a lab rat. Everybody comes in and pokes and prods. And, I've had a life of medical, and, because I have special needs, and it's horrible and I hate it, but that doesn't mean they're suicidal. And I tell people, it's like, if you go through the loss of a loved one and you're depressed over the loss of a loved one, that doesn't mean you have depression. And so often here in the US, especially, they're like, oh, you're depressed. Here, take a pill. Here, take a pill. Everything's take a pill. Everybody's take a pill. I'm completely against that, because you don't need a pill to fix everything. You need to sit down and take some time and listen, hear what's going on. If you're depressed because you lost a loved one, that doesn't mean you're depressed in a depression. And people are just like, oh, you need this. Here in the US, it's astonishing how all of a sudden everybody's on the autism spectrum. Everybody, and it doesn't matter. It could be just, oh, they're very slightly on the spectrum, but they show nothing. There's no symptoms to say that they're autistic, but the doctors here get huge kickbacks. They get all sorts of, refunds from the different, pharmaceutical companies and that and the other. And it's like, just listen, this individual has traumatic memories of every time going in of something happening at the hands of the doctors that you're supposed to know how to trust, and you're supposed to know are there to make you better. And in turn,
exactly. And this is what I'm saying is, we've got the counselors or whatever in the hospitals that are doing the psych evals and things like that. They're virtually saying to these kids, we use the analogy of someone passing away. Mm-hmm. Say your best friend passes away and you go up to, someone comes up to you and says, get over it, they're gone. Move on with your life. That's what these counselors are saying to these kids. We don't believe you. We don't trust your memory of this, whether you remember it or whether you don't. You still have a memory. Right. Could be internal. This person that we're talking about has the actual memory of it. But what these counselors in the psych evals and things are doing to cover their own asses, basically, is saying, well, get over it. Take a pill and it'll be over.
Right.
Or do this and just put it out of your mind, because it's all up to your brain thinking something bad's going to happen. No, it's not. There is a history there. And so what we have to do is address that history. We have to really get into the center of the brain, the limbic center, where all the thoughts, emotions, and feelings are developed before logical thought. That's, in a whole separate area of the brain.
Right.
But in the limbic center, it's often called the human center. And this is where we develop these emotions and these feelings in particular linked to thoughts that affect the rest of our bodies. And we establish how we respond to things. And so this is where this is all coming from. Now, the body has a number one, in fact, the only job your whole body has is to keep you safe.
Right.
That includes your brain, that includes your immune system, that includes your endocrine system, so your hormones, it includes your digestive system. So this is why when some people eat certain things, they will be sick or they will cause an immune reaction like hives or skin breakouts or, gut issues, or something will happen, because all of these systems of the body
have to keep you safe. So we have to address, why is this person not safe? Not only what physically happened the first time in hospital, but what happened in their limbic brain to respond to this. And so this is where these professionals worldwide are letting people down, because they are treating symptoms. You mentioned the autism spectrum. Everyone has traits. Everyone. I am a mum of 2 ASD boys. They are completely different. One is very Asperger, that's my eldest, and my youngest was extremely autistic. But through support and guidance, you would meet my younger son and not even know, because he now knows how to handle the things that happen in his brain, and he knows how to deal with that. My eldest is like a walking computer. He just knows so much about so much. Like, he's amazing. And that's okay. That's who he is. But thinking differently does not mean that you need medication.
Right.
Now, here in Australia, when my eldest was, he was about 11, he was having a whole lot of behavioural issues right through primary school, which is elementary school in the US. He would go Hulk and destroy the classroom, and the teacher would have to take the rest of the class out. Because why? He was a kid that was doing long division and multiplication by grade 1, and they were asking him his times tables. Well, you're not feeding the brain of this child. You're teaching to what the rest of the class do. But I, as the mother, have told you what this child's capable of. He's bored. He's annoyed. He's frustrated. He's going to take it out on the classroom.
Right. Yeah.
Just think yourself lucky he's not flattening every other kid in the classroom. He's flipping some tables and ripping paper up. So what? But they, this rolled on to he was about 11. And when I actually pulled him out of school and started homeschooling him, and they said he needs to go on to Ritalin. You were mentioning the pharmaceuticals. I didn't know what I know now. I wasn't in the area of health back then. And, I thought it was a bit weird. How would you medicate someone that this is who they are? This is how their brain ticks, And so he went on to it for one dose. And he ended up having such a rage episode. And he said, I can feel my heart racing. And he was just lashing out. I took him off it. I got some natural remedies into him to try and detox him. And we took it back to the doctors, and I went, no. And mind you, before we took it back to the doctors, I had done a whole lot of research. And there was about 50 cases in Australia at the time of children having heart attacks from Ritalin.
And the doctors don't tell you that. They don't share any information with you at all. They don't, want that to come out.
No. So here I was. I went to them with the information, and I said, my kid doesn't need this. My kid needs me.
Right.
And so, I really threw myself into teaching him. And as I said, he homeschooled right through high school. He's a genius. He's a bit biased, proud mum moan. He's like the best kid. He's the best kid. We're about to move house, and I'm like, dude, can you sort out all the internet? Can you sort out all this? Because I don't know what that's all talking about, speeds and, I don't know, MBPS or I don't know, some crap like that. It's like, what from the Peanuts, cartoon. So I'm like, sort that out. When we get to the new house, as long as we have internet so Mummy can podcast,
we're good.
And work with her clients, we're all good. And he's like, do you want me to explain it? I'm like, no, not at all.
Yeah.
I bought him a Thermomix recently, and so he cooks most of our meals.
Nice.
And I'm like, we are eating things that I would never have even thought about. Like, we are going around the world with our culinary exploits, and he's in charge of that. So here's a kid that he doesn't work because he's not socially capable of going to a workplace.
Right.
But he does work because he keeps my household running. So, how lucky am I to have such a severely Asperger kid?
Right.
I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Because I am eating well, healthily, which, has been an issue all my life.
Right.
And I'm dropping excess weight that I don't need to have because he's looking at my macros. Plus, I have great internet. And, who wouldn't love a kid like that?
Well, a lot of people don't have the patience because it takes away time from themselves.
Well,
And
it does.
and
It
that's a
does,
huge problem.
definitely.
That's
But for me, that was probably a savior. It took time away
Absolutely.
from me so I couldn't dwell in my own shit, basically, because
Right.
I have to put him first.
Right.
But in putting him first, I'm learning now who I am.
Right. Absolutely. Back at that institution, if you will, some of the patients that have been there told me that they come in. One lady is 4'11". She came in at like 90 pounds, and they were serving anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 calories a day. And if they didn't finish and left one bite on their plate, they would get an NG tube put in. And it didn't matter if they wanted it or not, they were getting it. That's abuse.
That's abuse. That is abuse. Yeah.
Just go in there and do that. She told me that the bathrooms were always locked, not just in mealtime, but they were always locked. There was no trash cans. And, why don't you just take the time? Now it's like when you go into like the healthcare system here is so different than it was 10, 15 years ago. When you go in, this is why I advocate like I do for these families. You go in there and it's like a windmill. It's like, how many cases? And I'm like, they're not cases, they're kids. They're not a case number. It's not a patient number. Can we get through? And you see these doctors that say they see 40, 50 patients a day. Well, it's because it's a windmill. They come in and then they see you for like 8 minutes and then they leave and then they've got them lined up all the way down. And then literally, but then they put on the report on the summary of visitation, they put on there that it was an extensive visit, that it lasted longer than like 45 minutes or whatever it is. And then they supposedly did this full evaluation of the child where it says that they looked at them neurologically, they looked at their skin, they looked at their cognitive behavior, they looked at this, that, and the other. And they don't do any of that, but they're marking it that they do. And it's like, why can't you just, I've told so many people, Magic, I tell it like it is. I said, I'm not here to be your friend. I can be, bless you, I can be your biggest advocate or your biggest nightmare. That's basically what it's going to be. I've gotten right up in there with them when they want to say something, but then it's like, look, if this was your kid, are you going to be this like, whatever? Good for you. You get to go home on the weekend, but we don't have a weekend. We have a continuation every day that ends in Y. It's we're over there trying to make our children's lives better, show them that they're worth it. When my daughter was in the public school system in kindergarten, they were doing signs and she was like, they're like, which is the circle? And she would point. And then she would say, oh, that's an octagon. I got called to school. Well, she shouldn't be saying that. We're way behind and, we can't have her doing these things. What? Are you crazy? They don't want to look at these kids that are excelling in certain areas and promote that and embrace it and, really say, this is an amazing thing. You should be so proud of yourself. It's all like dark and gloomy. And on our Teen Talk, the number one fear these kids have is getting shot at school because the violence is so outrageous. Last week, it was homecoming and a middle school, a kid went in and started shooting up at the dance, brought a gun in and just started shooting. And it's now to the point where it's at least every single day you're hearing.
And I think with this, you have to, so we're in a different situation here in Australia. We have no guns because
no, you have knives. I've
they
heard
made
about
us,
the knife thing.
well, they made us hand in our guns. I wish we still had them, but you have to look at these kids that are doing these shootings and okay, it's not in every case.
Right.
But I'm just going to say, generally, why are these kids doing this?
Because they need help and they're screaming for help.
Exactly.
Nobody is listening.
In the 90s, there was a report that came out of the US, and I wish I could remember exactly when and where from, but they had looked into the medical history of a lot of these school shooters and found out, guess what they were on? Ritalin. Or Effexa, or, they were on one of these medications that was screwing up their brain to make them behave like this.
Right.
No one addressed, why is this kid feeling so lost? Again, we come back to root cause. Why? And, I think this is really, the medical industry really needs to take pause here and just go, what have we created? And what are we going to address? And they don't, unfortunately. They just roll on and say, well, it is what it is. That kid, shot up a school. It's not our problem. It's pretty awful.
Right. We have to break the cycle. We have to let them understand. And it's a lot of the same with like survivors of domestic violence, because I'm here to tell you that, I didn't have control of what I was wearing, or my makeup, or my hair, or anything, but I had control of food. And for the longest time, I had no idea, because I could sit there and eat, and that was the only thing I could control. I couldn't control what I put on for work. I couldn't control my hairstyle or my makeup or anything like that, but I could control the food. And,
Exactly.
there's like comfort in it. And, recently, and all the surgeries I've had, it's like, I've had such a hard time with my physicality, like looking at myself. I'm all scarred up. My biological family would say, you look like Freddy Krueger and the Elephant Man had a baby together. And this is coming from my family. And, oh, why don't you take a Sharpie and, play connect the dots with all your scars? You'll be busy for weeks. And these aren't things that you say to a child, yet alone your own, you don't say things like that. And I comforted myself with food. And then you regret it. And then it's like, how do you release that and get back to your best self? How can you?
I think we spoke about this on a previous podcast that we did. And, I was in a domestic violence situation as well with my ex-husband. And I would secret eat. So I would hide in the walk-in pantry eating a packet of potato chips.
I remember that.
And I would just hope that my kids couldn't see me, because I knew it was bad and I knew it was unhealthy. But I had to somehow control something in my situation.
Absolutely.
And, we're still going around in this circle here of, okay, if we relate this to the kids that are in trouble that need our help, how come they're not getting that in these facilities? They're not getting the why are you doing this? Why is this happening? We just come back to my favorite word, why.
Right.
Kids when they're little, what's one of the first words a toddler says apart from no? It's why. But why?
Why?
Put your shoes on. But why? Grab your coat. But why?
Or no.
How come no one's asking that anymore?
Right. Because it takes away from themselves.
Yeah.
It takes away from themselves. And shame on them for feeling that way.
100%.
If that was them, I guarantee you they'd have a totally different outlook. Completely.
Well, yes and no, because you know what? Sometimes these professionals, let's just say that they're not really, sometimes their own kids are just highly medicated. My auntie was married to a doctor. And, this doctor, he was a GP and he thought he knew everything because, he was full of his own self-importance. And he had her on every psych med possible. And he would tell her, definitely a domestic violence situation, but also medical violence. And he would tell her she was crazy and she had this and she had that. And there was a place here in Melbourne, I'm not going to say the name of it, but it was a clinic where they would do shock therapy on people. And he would put her into that so many times. And I was very close with my auntie. She was my godmother. And I remember taking her out one day, and it was after her husband had passed. And I said, what's going on? But she said, I've always been the same person. I don't know why everyone's got such a problem with me. And it just broke my heart. It just absolutely broke my heart because I loved and adored this woman. She was so supportive of me through everything. And, she was the one that was saying, don't listen to them. They don't know. Don't listen to them. Please don't, And she had been electrocuted, she had been drugged, she had been everything. And I just thought, here was this doctor, her husband, who was using her as a crash test dummy,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
There was never anything wrong with her mind. Never. This woman could cook a meal. You could say a meal and say what country it was from, and she could cook it as if she was from that country without a recipe.
That's some talent right there.
I know, right? Her baking, I just remember, she'd bake a cake and then she would sit there and she would cut it and she would just lovingly look at it and she'd say, can you see the air pockets in the cake? Can you see the moisture and the consistency? That was her thing.
Yeah.
And she was brilliant at it. No one ever looked at what she was good at. They were just like, what she can do for us. And unfortunately, when she passed, both her sons, my cousins, completely, they just denigrated her. When she'd passed, she was in a nursing home and they actually took a photo of her dead body and thought that was okay. And they were just so disrespectful. And then when all her stuff was divvied up, they just ignored her will completely. And it was like, this poor woman is still being abused.
Right. Yeah.
And so, back to doctors, if it was happening to them, well, sometimes they do it to their own families.
Right. No, I'm saying to them themselves.
Yeah.
Like, if this doctor himself became ill, he would want everybody to wait on him hand and foot, not what he was doing.
Oh, definitely.
Life. I'm saying him himself, like a pure narcissist. If he ended up getting sick, he's like, oh, I have a toothache. They're going to be in bed a week. Oh, I can't move, feel bad for me, do everything for me. It's always about them. Always. But you don't take into consideration everybody else. You're bringing into fact that these are genuine people and kids who need help. They need to go through and get help for their eating disorders, and they're not getting them because of some stupid people who have their head in their ass.
100%. 100%.
My husband's looking over at me. I would love to have you on more often. I wish I could get you to come on more often, because
I would love to.
We need to. I mean, I want to do everything that we can to help these kids. We have the teen talk where they come on and talk about their situations, but we need to get to the parents. And, I know my daughter said something to me, Magic, one day that changed my entire life. I took her to see the movie Dolphin Tale, and it was part of her Make-A-Wish trip. And we were sitting there, and my daughter has basically a non-functioning tongue. It's only a couple millimeters wide. It's in the back of her throat. And they told her she wouldn't talk, she wouldn't eat. Well, obviously they had no idea. So I'm sitting there and she's in my lap watching this movie. And have you seen Dolphin Tale?
No,
okay.
No, never even heard of it.
Story. It's a beautiful story. Harry Connick Jr.'s in it. I think Ashley Judd's in it. It's about a dolphin that was captured who lost their tail. And so they decide that they're going to grow and help this dolphin named Winter, and they're going to make a prosthetic tail. And my daughter looks at me in the movie and goes, I get it. And I said, what do you get? And she goes, Winter has no tail and I don't have a tongue. And Winter can swim and I can talk. And she goes, I'm really sorry, Mama. And I went, you're sorry for what? And she goes, you had a different life before me. This is the only life I've ever known. You've changed your life for me. This is the life I only know. I don't know your life. I don't know the life where I don't have doctors and therapists every day, and you're implementing the therapies in between appointments, and you're homeschooling me because this public school system can't meet my needs even with an IEP. And, you've changed everything that you are and became a whole different person to be my mom. And I'm like, and you know what? It's the greatest blessing of my life. My greatest honor is being your mom. You have taught me so much being your mom. And, these kids don't know a different life. This is all that they know. But the parents literally they get so frustrated, and it's not necessarily magic at the kids, it's at the situation, but they don't have the tools to realize, and sometimes they take it out on the kids. And I want to be able to help them realize there's other options out there that we can do to help make this easier for everybody involved.
The one thing I can say to any parents listening is, I haven't finished my journey with my eldest son. We're still going through some stuff. But all I can say is don't ever feel guilty about decisions or choices that you make. I've told you about, I mistakenly did exposure therapy with him, which was horrible. But don't ever feel guilty about that. You only know what you know at the time.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know. And you are doing everything you can for this little person that you love. Right. I still call them little people and babies. And, geez, my boys are 24 and 21 now, but they're still my babies.
They're always going to be our babies.
I still give them a kiss on the forehead every now and then, and they swat me away like it's some blowfly. And I'm like, yeah, well, if I have to hold you down to give you a kiss on the forehead, I'll do that just so that you know I mean I love you. This is like the real deal. But, parents out there, don't feel guilty about anything. Look at what your child is teaching you. Yes, you may have changed your life to help them, but thank God you did. Because look at some of the parents out there that don't do that and they write their kids off. You are not doing that. And if you feel like that's where you need to be, then let us help you with that.
Reach out to us. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Reach out. There is no greater thing to me than being a mum. I love what I do with my business. I love, the people I work with. I love my animals. I love my garden. But my greatest thing is being a mum to my 2 boys.
That's right.
Sometimes I really wish they would pack up and leave home and never talk to me again. Yeah, I have those moments. Don't worry.
Everybody has that,
we
right?
all have them, exactly. But my greatest thing is being a mum, because my whole journey of not knowing who I was, my greatest teachers live in my home.
That's right.
And my greatest teachers, I remember changing their nappies and having one pee in my face and, all that kind of thing. These 2 people have shown me how to discover who I was. They haven't shown me who I was. They've shown me how to discover who I was. So please, parents, don't ever beat yourself up about what you don't know. We're doing the best we can. It's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
There's no manual that says do all this and you're going to have the perfect relationship with your child and everyone's going to be happy and whatever. That doesn't exist.
Right.
Just you're doing the best you can today. And be an advocate for your kids. And it doesn't matter if people think you're absolutely lunatic. Someone's got to be an advocate for the kids.
Right. And if you have questions, reach out to either one of us. I'm going to have all of Magic's contact information in the show notes. And I am going to ask her while we're still recording and after, if I can get her to come back on routinely.
Of course.
Routinely. I admire this woman. She is an inspiration. She has I know you guys cannot see her, but she's a beautiful person inside and out. And just to know her and for me to be able to say that she is somebody I do call a friend, she's an amazing woman. And I truly thank you for your time today. And I'm going to hold you to coming back on routinely.
Thank you so much. And Victoria, I just need to return all that love. And I'm going to say this on air, but please share it of the puppy stuff on Facebook and tag me on it so my people can get behind you and, really contribute, because that's just absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we are going to have all the information to reach out to her. I am going to speak with her off air about getting her on routinely. And if you have any questions about anything to either one of us can help out with, please reach out to us and we will answer you. When you reach out, you do get us. You're not going to get somebody else. So thank you so much for being here. I am about to go get dinner because my husband's come in here twice looking at me like, hello. So I thank you again, and we will be together here again soon. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you so much.